Good morning and welcome back. It's parts day. Yesterday a bunch of new parts were delivered, including the new fender. I was able to find a rim. It's not new. It's definitely been used. I believe this was a spare tire. So it's got a bit of rust on it. Definitely needs touch up, and it needs the white paint to match the other side. Got some new lighting components from the lights that were damaged. Air intake hose, the new chrome headlight bezel. This big piece here is the inner fender. The one I took out was too mangled to reuse. We've got new wheel bearings, new seals, so we should be able to get the wheels put back on the truck today and put her on the ground. So my goal is to put the wheels back on and get these other parts prepped to go back on the truck. Let's get started. Alright, it's time to install the bearings and the races. I'm going to start with the inner bearing race. And this piece from my ball joint press actually fits the race perfectly. So I'm going to line all that up, give it a little tap. Alright, that's pretty good. Just trying to get as even as possible. On this side. So this is actually, fortunately, it's just too wide. I can't get it past this lip. So I'm going to need something else to push it the rest of the way. Let me see if I can find something that's soft enough that I won't damage the bearing race. Alright, so after a bit of thinking, I came up with this. It's just a really cheap flathead. Usually these aren't made out of very good metal, and they're usually not hardened. So this versus the bearing race material, I guarantee is going to win. So I'm just going to keep tapping in, slowly work my way around. Alright, that worked great actually. You can actually see here where the screwdriver was starting to mushroom on the end. So it's definitely softer than the bearing race. I can't see any marks on the race whatsoever. So I think that worked perfectly. Alright, perfect. So for the front, found a 1 1/4 inch socket that fits the bearing race perfectly and goes all the way to the bottom, so it should seat it completely. Pretty straight. That's good. Almost there. Hand packing bearings. I'm going to get a bunch in your hand, and you're going for this side of the bearing. You can see the sides kind of open. That allows the grease to get into the inside of the bearing assembly, kind of in between the rollers. What you do is you build hydraulic pressure by slapping the bearing, and that pushes the grease in between the rollers. And you can kind of see, if you look at the middle, obviously we're not packing the middle, but it's a good demonstration. When you push, it presses the grease through. And so what you're doing is you're pressing it through all the bearings on the outside. So watch this gap in between the inner bearing and the assembly. I press in. You can see it's extruding through, so that's how you know the bearing's completely full. Used a little too much there. Good place for your extra grease is inside the bearing grease cap. Work its way into the bearings over time. Provide fresh grease. Oop. Go in there. All right, so to make sure this is all together properly, start off by hand tightening this nut, and then you spin it. Tighten some more. And then what's interesting is you actually only want this, you want to tighten this down with your fingers and then back it off. And there shouldn't be any play, but it should spin freely. So it's actually quite loose. Got our little retainer on there. There we go, got a brand new cotter pin. It's a little long, I'm going to trim those ends off. Alright, another tool for my ball joint press. You want to push these in on the rim. I think I've seen online people using PVC for this, but I have this guy that fits, so I'm going to use it. So, breaking caliper grease. I'm going to start with the rear one, or inside one. Put a little grease between the caliper and this plate. And since I'm reusing this one, I can see the where the piston is. Grease that. Just compressing the brake caliper here, make my life a little easier. Got a new retaining bolt. It's got a Loctite on it. Now I just have to do that one more time. All right. I spared you the boredom of watching me put this side on. It's exactly the same thing. But went well. So both wheels are on, both brakes are installed. Should be good to put on the ground. So I put this wheel on and put the steering wheel straight. I line up with this side of the car. You can see it's still a bit pigeon-toed. So gonna have to adjust that steering rack a little bit. Also maybe flip that bolt around because I put it on backwards from the other ones. I'm just kind of eyeballing this. Going to need to have this vehicle aligned. So this is just an initial setting, just to get it somewhat close. Truck is heavy. My apologies, I didn't film taking the bumper off, but I think I actually did you a favor. Whoever decided to do carriage bolts for this, man, that's terrible. My issue was they were so rusted that when you tried to turn them, and these holes are rectangular, they're not square, so it only takes two sides to deform before the carriage bolt just starts spinning. So it was a fight trying to get all four of them off. And the last one especially, I had to resort to the grinder to get it off. So yeah, that pretty much seals the fate of this bumper. Gonna have to get a new one. But the reason I was taking it off is there's no way that the new fender is gonna fit with it bent the way it is. So it had to come off. All right, so the plan is to try to reattach the fender. I'm gonna put everything on this side on first and then try to attach this side. Since this side is damaged, I want this side to line up and then I'll attempt to line this side up. We'll see how it goes. All right, I think I'm gonna call it quits here for today. I've been messing with this fender for a while and it's clear that it's gonna take a lot of shims and a lot of just fiddling in order to get it to line up somewhat right. Obviously I expected it to be not quite right with the side of this car being impacted, but yeah, it's just gonna take me a bunch of time. Just unbolting, adding shims, bolting it back on. Yeah, you can see this is, oh, apparently I cut myself. See, this is like ½ an inch off when it's supposed to line up with the front of the fender. So yeah, that's gonna be fun. Yeah, wonder if that has to do with the hinge. Yeah, so the gap's smaller on this side than that side, so the hood is at an angle. Nice. Yeah, so as you can see, I got my work cut out for me. It's gonna, just a lot of fiddling to get everything to go back together somewhat right. It's never gonna be perfect once a vehicle has been hit like this, but I'm gonna do what I can. Color's not too bad. It's definitely a little more yellow, but it's about as good as I'd expect from a rattle can. My one complaint though is this fender stated that it was primed, so I just painted it. Apparently that's not correct because this paint did not adhere to the primer. So it's not going to be very long before, yeah, it's not going to be very long before I need to take it all, well, probably leave it on, but at least sand it down and repaint it, which is unfortunate, but I should have done more research on whether or not I needed to treat that surface before I painted it. But I got the wheels on, got her down on the ground. I think I've done quite a bit for today. See you in the next video.